from what I hear with the people that I'm fortunate enough to speak to in the background, you would not be able to comprehend the level of technology that we actually have in behind the scenes that nobody's talking about.
Non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity.
This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing.
Imagine what we'll do 50,000 years or 1,000,000 years. Incomprehensible.
Unidentified fine object, saucer shape, bar shape.
That's some science fiction stuff right there.
Hello and welcome to another solo edition of the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast. I'm Digby Furneaux. I hope you're doing well. Today is the 1st of February, and so that sees the end of January. January was a hell of an interesting month, wasn't it? From Cybertruck bombers to egg-shaped UAP to Psionics to plane crashes. Could anything else have happened in January? I've said it before, it feels like we've lived 6 months already of this year and it's only just begun. There is a lot more to come out. And with Jake Barber's latest interview with Jesse Michaels, I'm beginning to feel like there is this very big plan in the background with all the movers and the shakers in the UFO world for a planned disclosure that is happening this year. All the pieces are seemingly falling into place. Jake Barber's recent interview on Jesse Michaels was nothing short of amazing. I would go as far to say it was the most enjoyable interview I've ever watched. I think Jake's a great public speaker. I believe his story, and I think that this is the way that we are going forwards with disclosure, and that all of us out here might finally get some of the answers we've been waiting so long for, especially me as an experiencer and an abductee, which I'll be talking about more over the coming weeks. In fact, I'm recording with Jason at UAP Studies, who's a good friend. I'm recording with him on Sunday, so look out for that episode on UAP Studies next week. It was going to be something that I was going to do on my show, but I thought it was better that somebody else interviewed me rather than me just talk about it, because we'll get more details that way. And he's very, very good at that. But anyway, going back to Jake Barber. If you haven't seen it, I urge you go watch the episode on Jesse Michaels' channel. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But I'm going to run through some of my main key talking points and show you some clips, and you guys can make up your mind for yourself. Now, the first thing that I picked up on that nobody else was really talking about for the first day or so was the fact that Jake Barber talked about his connection with AARO.
Since we've left the program and reorganized and are now working with AARO, I can make the egg show up. And we have. And we've demonstrated it post-program. And we did it in August.
Oh my God.
In broad daylight.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can summon the egg?
Yes, we can summon the egg.
That is absurd.
It seems absurd, but we've tracked it in broad daylight, the egg, moving at 10,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
So based on range. And it comes when we've, at a precise timing, when we've asked for. We're doing demonstrations for the new director of AARO. They're fully privy. They've seen our videos. They've seen our data and our report.
And AARO is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution
Office. Yeah, we have.
Now, in this clip, you can clearly hear that Jake is confirming his alignment with AARO. Now, this is post-Shawn Kirkpatrick era, so we've got a new head of AARO, whose name escapes me right now, but that's probably a good thing. If he's not making too much of a name for himself, then he's probably not doing too wrong. But it's very interesting to hear that AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is working with Jake Barber in his private enterprise with Skywatcher. That means we've got an official branch of the US government that is actively working with a private sector company that is doing UFO research and crash retrievals. And the new director of AARO has been out with Skywatcher and has witnessed firsthand their ability to call in these UAP with the use of psionics. That's really, really big news. That's that's something that we need to be talking an awful lot more about, because that really is massive news. The old version of AARO wouldn't be out there doing that. Shawn Kirkpatrick was too busy wiping his arse with all the evidence to ever get off his backside and do anything about it, or actually look for any evidence. So to know that AARO, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is working with Jake Barber, for me, this is a massive, massive step forwards, and it can't be overlooked. I'm really pleased to see that AARO is finally heading in the right direction. So fingers crossed. I mean, they may still be complete disinformation turds, but time will tell. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. AARO version 2.0. The other takeaway point from the Jesse Michaels interview is how honest Jake Barber is. And he talks about red teaming his own whistleblowers. There was a disclosure conference held by Stephen Greer a few years back, and one of the key speakers on that was Mike Herrera, who came out and talked about this 8-gon-shaped black craft he came across floating in the jungle while he was on mission. And he got spotted by other US military officers who were basically contemplating whether they needed to shoot him and kill him on sight. Luckily, they didn't. Mike Herrera is a very brave soldier, and I respect him for everything he's done and continues to do in speaking out. But Jake Barber was sent to the disclosure conference that Stephen Greer was holding to see if he could round up whistleblowers and turn them in. So that's basically called red teaming. The whistleblowers were the black team, he's the red team, and his mission is to go and get the black team. And it was only by listening to Herrera's speech and him talking about this 8-gon craft, he realized that he wasn't lying. Jake Barber had seen the very same craft, or a very similar craft. From what I understand, these are reverse engineered. And it struck a chord with him. And it was that moment that Jake Barber decided that he wasn't going to be the person to round up the whistleblowers, but he was going to be one himself. Now, I'm going to talk about the Mike Herrera bit as well now, because one of my key takeaway points is we're starting to see the players in the background that are actually pumping out the disinformation. Now, last week, Chris Bledsoe and his son took to social media to tell everybody that Shawn Ryan of The Shawn Ryan Show interviewed Bledsoe last year. The interview was supposed to come out last year, and it didn't. And then it was delayed to the middle of January, and now Shawn Ryan is refusing to air that interview. So, why is Shawn Ryan not playing Chris Bledsoe's interview? Chris Bledsoe's been interviewed time and time again. He would have known exactly what sort of thing that Bledsoe was going to talk about. So why, after recording it, has he decided that he can't show the episode? Okay. Moving on. Steve Herrera did a 2-part episode with Shawn Ryan. It was one of Shawn Ryan's biggest shows. Shawn Ryan controlled the narrative in that interview to push it towards talking about abduction, child abduction, and child trafficking. I don't mean alien abduction, I mean by our own people. That was very much part of what Herrera thought was going on when he saw this craft in the jungle and people being loaded onto it. But that isn't the narrative, but it seems very clear that that's the narrative that Shawn Ryan wanted to push. And it's not a comfortable thing for people to discuss or talk about. Nobody likes to talk about the idea that one's own government is in charge of abducting its own people and using them for their own abilities, especially when it comes down to children and gifted children. But we'll come back onto why the children thing in a bit. Shawn Ryan pushed this narrative for child trafficking, essentially, in this interview, which just simply wasn't the case. and it damaged Mike Herrera's credibility with a lot of people and steered a narrative of disclosure that wasn't particularly nice, and it did a lot of damage. Now you have Chris Bledsoe's interview not coming out. Chris Bledsoe is very love and light, very angels, and which is fantastic. I believe there's more to it than that, but I certainly believe that is a side of it. But then let's also look what happened on New Year's Day with the cyber bomber outside the Trump Towers. This fantastical report of the fact that the bomber may still be alive. He sent an email manifesto to other people, and then this guy comes on, Shawn Ryan, talking about the manifesto and how it's all linked with the New Jersey drones and free propulsion and everything like this. And it was like, this is really fantastical. And at the time, you're like, oh God, yeah, I want to soak this up because this is great. But then you realize they're just actually telling you what you want to hear. And it was, in my opinion, looking back on it now, although I was very excited about the time, it was a load of bullshit. It was an absolute load of bullshit, in my opinion. And Shawn Ryan was the one peddling it. So I think it's safe to say, well, certainly in my opinion, and you're free to have your own, in my opinion, from now on, I am not going to be trusting a single word that comes out of Shawn Ryan's mouth, because he's either being manipulated behind the scenes or controlled, or, well, look at what the guy's job used to be.
Shawn Ryan was there at the time with us in DC when this happened, and we talked about this. Shortly after that is when Herrera went on his show, and the thing took a kind of a dark turn, because the term human trafficking was slapped on this thing, and when you hear that, you think of slavery and sex trafficking and all these things. And it's my understanding that's not at all what goes on in these operations. It's no different than someone setting up any other type of business, and the people come willingly. The people that work in these programs, it's a great job. It's fun. Some of them have known their whole life that they have this intuition or this special talent, and they're socially awkward or have other pathologies, social pathologies, that they're dealing with too, that somehow seems like it plays into this. So it's like, not all the people that are talented in this way are normal in every other way. It's like God created some balance. So when they can come in and get involved in this program and have food and shelter and be treated with respect and make money, like if you went down there on your high horse representing the United States and morality and went in and tried to liberate these people, they'd be like, get out of here. We don't want to be liberated. This is our job.
Can I play devil's advocate for 1 second? I think in the Michael Herrera testimony, he thought that whatever organization this paramilitary group was from was taking advantage of the fact that Indonesia was this disaster zone.
Right.
And some of these people could go missing easily.
Yes.
And so that, to me, sounds
that's
a little more...
one theory. Or the hurricane, the natural disaster was actually threatening a workspace for this operation, and they needed to get the hell out of Dodge.
Got it.
I have no firsthand experience with that operation, nor direct contact with anyone involved with it. I know of that type of operation. I know of that craft. I know of those containers. And I know of operations that sounded like. And so the whole point of all this, and let me put a big giant red bow on it for you, is that this was one, I saw a good Marine up there when I saw Mike. I saw a brother in arms doing his best to be put now with a microphone in his face in a fucking suit and tie in Washington, D.C., when he's cut out to be carrying a saw through the jungle. And now he's doing his best, and he's an honest, good guy, and I wasn't going to let him hang. So I sidebarred Greer and a bunch of other people and said, we need to talk about this. I thanked Michael. And I have been loyal to him throughout the process and trying to help him as much as I can get support for this, while also trying to stay low key to figure out where the problems and landmines are with this issue.
Moving on to the next point of the Jake Barber interview is talking about psionics.
While some of the biological cargo that comes with these craft is not conscious, consciousness itself is how you interact and pilot the craft. which is ironic because for the first time ever, the biological creatures inside are not conscious, but the craft is.
Now, psionics is a very interesting part of the phenomenon, and it's something that I've been interested in a while, and several people have online, like Astral with his remote viewing spaces, and old vet Shane, and a few others. In fact, Shane's actually involved with the program with Jake Barber, which is absolutely amazing. But psionics comes at a price, in a sense that there are kind of two communities within the UFO world. And you watching this will probably fall into one camp. You're either nuts and bolts or you're woo. The woo believe in the nuts and bolts, but they believe in the psychic element to it as well. Nuts and bolts people are like, no man, I just want to see a UFO and a grey alien, and I want them to land on the White House lawn, have a good handshake, and life's going to be amazing. We're all going to travel through the stars for the rest of time. And then you've got the woo people that believe in a more spiritual side of it and a more mental side of it, cerebral, non-local consciousness, everything like that. And talking about psionics now, as it's been brought to the forefront by Jake Barber, is making a lot of other people very uncomfortable because, you know, I believe Jake Barber 100%. I'm going to say that right now, and, you know, I'll die on my sword with that one. But if you were not ready to hear that, I'm sorry, but you may have got an uncomfortable truth. And it's very clear now that some people only like the truth if it was the truth that they wanted. But that's not how it works, is it? No, it isn't. So we have this psionic ability, innate ability in our heads. And I've talked about this before in private and in public. And that my belief is that we all have natural psychic abilities in our brains. But the medicines that we take in our day-to-day lives, the vitamins that we use that aren't actually vitamins, the food that we eat that's poisoned with pesticides and God knows what else, the water that we drink that is just, well, it's horrific. If you ever buy a water distiller and pump about 9 litres of water through your water distiller, you'll have to scrape the sludge off the bottom of the tank, and it smells vile like a sewer, and you're drinking that. So we're putting all this stuff into our body, and what it does, among other things, is a calcification process in our pineal gland, and it's not very good for psionic abilities. So actually, what we are doing is dumbing down our own abilities by the food that we eat, the water we drink, and even the air that we breathe now. And we're dumbing down those abilities. Also, I was in a space with Jason from UAP Studies last night as well, and he said, well, something else that's dumbing down our attention span and our mind's abilities, and this is a very good point, is the introduction of YouTube Shorts and of TikTok videos. To use psionic abilities, to use our brain's natural ability to reach out to others mentally, you need to have a very strong mind, very dedicated. You need to meditate. You know, the whole process for us doesn't come very easily. It comes with practice and dedication. And what are we taught through YouTube Shorts and TikTok? 7 seconds attention span, like this. Everything in our day-to-day life almost sounds like, now call me a conspiracy theorist, almost sounds like we're being controlled in a way that they don't want us to have these abilities. And they're doing everything they can to stop us from having them. But moving back to Jake Barber and the psionic team that he works with, it's interesting that they're mainly men, mainly bi or homosexual, and they have an innate ability to meditate, clear their mind, and separate themselves from reality. So there's obviously, I think there's sort of, if your mind is used to being resilient in a way, like if you were a gay man coming out at the time that you came out, that meant that you became more resilient to certain things, perhaps that's an element. And the other one was children, because they're not, their minds aren't almost sort of dumbed down by intelligence, if you know what I mean. Their brain and their mind is freer. So Jake starts talking about children that are taken into the program from countries like, you know, Southeast Asia and Indonesia and places like this. And I think this is where the narrative came from with Shawn Ryan, in the fact that it was assumed that these children were taken against their will. But apparently they're not. Apparently they are employed. They're very happy. They're paid very well. And if you ask them if they wanted to leave, they wouldn't want to. Whether that's the truth, I don't know. You can make your own mind up on that. But psionics, I think, is a very interesting part of the phenomena now, and it's not going away. And I urge everybody to look into it, do some research, and start doing things in your day-to-day life that are going to increase your mind's ability to level up. And the best ways you can do that is look at the food you're eating. Only eat organic if you can. I know it's difficult. Grow as much as you can, but obviously grow it from organic sources. Clean your water properly, and just look at the medicines that you're putting in your body day to day and see if you can cut back on those things, because they're all going to help you immeasurably. Next point. I found this quite funny, actually. And it's the point where Jake says he goes to Congress.
It's a problem and it's sad, but our Congress is not in control. They are they're ignorant and neutered when it comes to the subject matter. For the most part, they're ignorant and neutered. And where they're not ignorant and neutered, they're corrupt and arrogant, which nets us a Congress that's in a state of paralysis by analysis. And I can't tell you, like, for me, how sinking a feeling that was. Like, I go running and I'm nervous because I'm going to blow the whistle. And the first place I go is the Senate Intelligence Committee and the monitor for CIA. And I start telling my story. They don't question it for 1 second. They know it's happening. They're like, they're edifying everything I'm saying and trying to cut me off because they're so, like, excited to actually get to talk about this, and are like, oh my God, so what do I do? And they're like, give me your number. Do you have signal? I need to text you. These guys were at my house last night. And I'm like, wait a minute. This was my asking for help moment.
Now, in that video, you can clearly see that Jake went to Congress for help. And what's hilarious is none of them were shocked by anything that he had to say. In fact, they seemed very happy to see him. And when he went to ask for help, they asked for his and asked him to put a protection team in place for them and for their own protection. There are a lot of bad faith actors in the US Congress, as there are in the UK Parliament and governments all around the world. This is the problem with modern day politics: is everybody is only looking at lining their own They're only looking at lining their own pockets. And when money is involved and they have the ability to trade on the inside like they do, then you will always have corrupt politicians. And with the aerospace industry and the military industrial complex the way that it is, this sector is no different. In fact, I would dare say it is beyond doubt the worst, and something needs to be done about that. I used to think that something had to be done about that if we were going to get disclosure. But the more I look into it now, I realize that disclosure isn't coming from the US government. It's not coming from China or Russia or the UK. It's not. It's coming from efforts like Jake Barber and Skywatcher. And I dare say, from what we've seen already, and this very constructed rollout that he's on at the moment, I would dare say that the information is already there. And it is my understanding that not only is it going to happen this year, but I would say that in the next couple of months, there will be enough information for the general public to make their own mind up about the existence of extraterrestrial life, or NHI, to a point where I think it becomes commonly accepted. At which point, hopefully, the general public will be able to benefit from the reverse engineered technology that we have in our possession. because from what I hear with the people that I'm fortunate enough to speak to in the background, you would not be able to comprehend the level of technology that we actually have in behind the scenes that nobody's talking about. Technology that could be rolled out that would drastically change our lives and the trajectory of mankind for the rest of time. Stuff that's hundreds, if not thousands years more advanced than we currently are. So that's exciting. Let's look forward to that. I will be holidaying in Zeta Reticuli next year. You're welcome to join me if you wish. I'm only joking, obviously, but that would be pretty fun. Last point, Kirkpatrick. Jake talks about Kirkpatrick and the fact that he went to Kirkpatrick's version of AARO first, and he was completely disinterested and took the information he gave them and ran straight to the buddies he has in Congress and basically killed the whole thing.
This issue was brought up to the entire incident was brought up with my corroborations and my additional information was presented to Shawn Kirkpatrick's version of AARO. He patently denied it and wrote it off as anti-interesting, and there was no evidence. And I know for a fact that Shawn Kirkpatrick has admitted outside of the office of AARO directly to members of the Senate Intelligence Committee that it did in fact happen exactly as reported by Michael Herrera and with my additions.
This point in time, I think it's very clear to see who Shawn Kirkpatrick is and who he was working for, which aerospace companies he was working for. As Jake said, I'll give you two guesses and both your guesses will be right. You know which aerospace companies I am talking about. And Shawn Kirkpatrick needs to be dragged in by his heels and face the claims made against him, because at this point I would say that Shawn Kirkpatrick was definitely working for those agencies against military personnel of the US and the atrocities that have been committed against some of those. And there's a level of responsibility that falls on his shoulders because he's known what's happened and he's allowed it to happen. And also he's lied to the American public about the most egregious things. And we have to remember that it's all very exciting when we get new whistleblowers, and it is great. And somebody like Jake Barber, with the personality and the ability and the presence to really, really bring this home. And I think he is, because I think he's just a level up above anybody that we've currently got or have the ability to watch on podcasts or documentaries. Yeah, Jake Barber is the one to bring this home, I think. And we've got a new documentary coming out, Age of Disclosure, which does look absolutely amazing. And according to Lou, there's a load of people coming forward in that we haven't seen before. And it's going to blow the lid off everything, apparently. Again, it's always something, isn't there? But keep the faith. Give it a little bit more time, because in my opinion, we are on the right track. Hopefully, Tom and I will get an opportunity to speak to Jake Barber soon on the show. I know people who knows people, so he's making some calls. And when he's finished doing all his big time shows, hopefully he will come over and give little old us a try, which would be amazing. But we'll see. Time will tell. Until then, God bless. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.